Thanks for joining. A warm welcome to all of you. So as Rohit mentioned, this is the beginning of a new chapter series for us. So back in 2022 and early 2023, we did a couple more chapters on UiPath platform infra. And today we are starting a new journey with chapter 3, and we're kind of excited to bring you forward this new series. So I'll quickly share my screen. Maybe someone can just give a shout.
Yes, you can see.
Yeah, thank you. So okay, so today's demo, before diving into the demo, let me start with a quick introduction. So I'm Shreyas Risodkar, Technical Account Manager, part of TAM India Group, we call it here. We'll be walking you through the standalone UiPath Orchestrator Upgrade demo. I'm accompanied with Priyesh Tiwari, who is my TAM colleague and TAM counterpart. We're both based out in Pune. So in today's session, we are looking to cover the UiPath Orchestrator upgrade of a standalone based deployment. I will be covering the IAAS based deployment part, and Priyesh will be covering the PAAS deployment part today. And we'll try to keep it as hands-on as possible. So for some of you who have seen our previous chapters, we'll give you a little bit of context on bit of introduction on what kind of setup we are going to use for the demo, how the architecture is currently placed, how the setup looks like, and then we will kind of dive into the upgrade scenario with a live demo example. So this slide just talks about our profiles. We have our LinkedIn profiles flashing on the screen. So both of us technical account managers at UiPath based out in Pune. I think Priyesh has also shared a Slido link, and you also have the QR code flashing on the screen. So feel free to either scan the code or join via the link. Any kind of Q&As you have, you can feel free to post it in the Slido channel, and one of us will look to answer it along the way. Also, while we'll be performing the upgrade, I think we'll get sufficient time while the upgrade is running to answer, have a live interaction. You can unmute yourself and ask any questions at that point in time as well. We'll be happy to answer all of those. So yeah, so with this, like we are very excited to kick off this new series, and as Rohit mentioned, stay tuned. These are the 5 different topics which we are planning to cover in this particular chapter series. So the theme for this series is mainly component upgrades. So we are starting with the most common component used in UiPath family of products, the orchestrator upgrade, which people encounter more often than not. So we are going to upgrade today from 2022.4 to 2023.4 version. The next subsequent chapters are also listed here. So next week we'll have insights followed by test manager and action center. And then last 2 topics may be new to a lot of you, but very interesting ones. We'll be doing a live automation suite installation, and in the subsequent week, we'll also be doing a automation suite upgrade. So stay tuned for those. The first 3 chapters will be in standalone mode. So for those of you who don't know, we have basically 3 different types of deployment modes in UiPath today. The cloud-based UiPath automation cloud platform is the SaaS offering. And if you want to bring your own infra, you have 2 options today. If you are looking to deploy entire platform, you can go with the automation suite option, which will be covered in the last two topics of this series. And the first 2 topics will be based on the standalone based installation. So we'll be installing all these products in a standalone installation modes. And we'll look at these in more detail, so don't worry about it. So agenda for today's topic is orchestrator upgrade. And as I said, we'll be moving from 2022.4, which was released in April last year, to the latest orchestrator release, which is 2023.4, which came April this year. So anyone who had, let's say, installed an orchestrator early last year and had 2022.4 version to 23.4 latest version, if anyone wants to upgrade, so they can use this as a reference. Even if you're coming with any other older version or a different version, underlying concepts will pretty much remain the same. But in the agenda, we'll try to cover mainly we'll start with basically what is the need for upgrade. Let's say you have a specific version of Orchestrator which you have installed and which you're connecting to and using it for your automation. What is the need for proceeding with upgrades? And what are the different kind of approaches to go about performing the upgrade? What kind of planning, prerequisite checks and considerations we need to have before we start with the upgrade activity? Once we have spoken about these, then we'll dive into the demo. Um, we'll look to cover the multi-node orchestrator upgrade. Now you can have a single node orchestrator or a multi-node orchestrator scenario. We thought of taking a multi-node example because it is relatively a little more complicated as compared to a single node kind of a setup. So it will encompass, it's like a superset of the single node setup. So we'll try to show you how to go about performing a multi-node orchestrator upgrade. And once the orchestrator is upgraded, we'll also show you an example of how you can upgrade the HAA component. So for those of you who have either been part of the series one session on multi-node orchestrator installation, you can consider this particular session as more of an extension to that previous session. So in the last topic, we had shown you how we can go about installing the multi-node orchestrator and link it to the HAA setup. So today it's like taking that setup and moving it to the latest version of the orchestrator. Once these two demos are complete, I'll hand over to Priyesh, and Priyesh will be showing you uh, orchestrator PAAS upgrade demo. So he will also be upgrading from 2022.4 version to 2023.4 version, and he will be using Azure PAAS UiPath Orchestrator App Service to upgrade the 2022.4 version to 23.4 version. And once the upgrade is complete, we'll also try to show you some examples on how we should do basic sanity, what kind of things get upgraded, what kind of things need to be checked after the upgrade is complete. We'll also try to run a small quiz along the way to keep the session interactive. So stay tuned. Okay, so diving into the first part, what essentially drives the need for upgrade? So this slide mainly talks about what is the need for going about and upgrading your orchestrator. So I've listed, basically, if you look at the left side of the slide, you can see the major reason for upgrade is every year UiPath releases new versions of the product, and starting 2021.10, October 2021, October 2021, UiPath has started releasing every subsequent release has been a long-term support release. So if you look at the table on the right, there is something called as LTS and FTS. So LTS is long-term support and FTS is a fast-track support. So any version that got released with a long-term support cycle, it comes with 2 years of mainstream support and 1 year of extended support warranty. So as you can see, there are a list of different orchestrator versions which have come with LTS support. If it is a FTS support, it only comes with 1 year of 1 year of like extended support warranty. So as you can see, 2020.4 version was a FTS cycle, and this was retired. Support for this was retired in 2021. So what this will mean is like if any new features are getting introduced or any new bug fixes are getting introduced, they will be not pushed to these out of support versions, and it will be essential for you to, this will be like a key driver for most of the people to upgrade and be on the latest version so that they keep getting the latest offerings that are being pushed from UiPath side. So going by this cycle, we've written a small note at the end which talks about the version which is about to expire in 2020.10. So 2020.10 was again a long-term LTS cycle. So it came with 2 years of mainstream support and 1 year of extended support. So 3 years of support, which will expire in October 2023. Similarly, 2021.10 will expire in October 2024. So depending on which versions you are on, you should plan in advance when your support cycle is ending, and accordingly you can like take a call when you want to go about the upgrade. And this is like one of the major driver for most people to go ahead and upgrade their environment. Another reason could be with every release comes plethora of features which UiPath releases. So in those, you should keep a watch on the release notes if you go to UiPath, docs.uipath.com orchestrator section, the first link will be of the release notes link. So there you can keep a tab also in the community and UiPath forums. You can see what is coming newly in every release. So in your project or whatever development you are doing, if you are looking to work on those specific features, that can be another reason for upgrade. Also, whenever you're upgrading the orchestrator, it is important to take a look at the compatibility metrics. So we'll be sharing the slide afterwards. I've put all the links in the slide. If you look at the compatibility metrics, it will tell you which version of orchestrator is compatible with which other versions of the UiPath family. So for example, if I look at 2021.10 version of orchestrator, which all UiPath Studio versions are compatible with that specific version of Orchestrator, I can find a matrix kind of a table in that link, and that should be another factor when you're planning for an upgrade. So let's say if you are on a latest version of Orchestrator, but you're on a very outdated version of Studio, in that case, there will also be a need to upgrade Studio. Studio upgrades are fairly simple. It's just like where to go about running the MSI and upgrading the wizard. So we're not covering that in today's section. But you should also do a check of the compatibility metrics whenever you're planning for your orchestrator upgrades or for any upgrades, any standalone upgrades that you're planning of UiPath product family. There is also a mention of a single step upgrade or a two-step upgrade here. So what happens here is like if you are coming with a very outdated version of an orchestrator, something like if you look at the table on the right, there is something called as 2018.1 or 2018.2. In that case, you cannot directly jump from the older version of the orchestrator to the most recent version of orchestrator because the platform underwent a lot of architectural changes along the way. So in that case, it will be like a two-step upgrade. So especially let's say if you're coming from anything below 2018.4, you'll have to first come to 2018.4 version. That will be your step one upgrade. And once you are stably reaching the 2018.4 version, then you can plan your upgrade to a higher version about 2018.4. So that is another factor to keep in mind. Also choose wisely between whether you want to go with the latest version or the N-1. A lot of customers or a lot of individuals choose for N-1 LTS versions because they have been in production for quite some time and have received a lot of cumulative bug fixes. So it might be a good idea to, let's say, if you are in 23.4, you may want to consider something like October 2022 release because it is the N-1 LTS release and it has been in production for some time. So that can be another gating criteria whenever you're choosing a specific version. Also, one key factor is always read the release notes to see what are the features which are getting deprecated, what are the features getting newly introduced in every release, and subsequently plan your upgrades. Also, always as a best practice, if you're working on a customer environment, try to have a non-production replica of the production setup and first perform the upgrade activity on the non-production setup, followed by a production upgrade. Document all your learnings that you're finding in the non-production environment and then go about implementing the corrections in the production environment. Okay, moving on. So let's say if I've decided that I want to go about with my upgrade and I've chosen the version, what is my current version and what is going to be my destination version. So today's example, we're going to look to migrate from 2022.4 to 2023.4. I can have two approaches possible to plan my upgrade activity. So on the left, what you see is something we called as in-place upgrade. And on the right, what you see is something we called as a parallel upgrade approach. So you may hear some of these terms when you talk to the UiPath counterparts. What is an in-place upgrade is without disturbing my current setup. Like, I mean, on the same exact infra that I'm having, on the same web server, I'm going to run my upgrade wizard and the same web server is going to get updated and have a new version. So I'm not going to bring any new infra or new environment. On the existing environment itself, I'm going to run my upgrade and my version will get upgraded from current version to a new version. So that is called as an in-place upgrade. If I talk about a parallel upgrade, in some cases, customers choose for like a safe approach. They don't want to have a big production impact or they want to validate the new environment first before they switch to the new version. So in that case, they bring like a new web server, a new database server, a new replica of your existing infra setup, like a blank infra setup, and they do a fresh installation on the new environment. They just take the backup of the database and entities and migrate that to the new version that is created in the parallel environment. they run both the environments for some time, do a cutover activity, and then migrate from the existing environment to the new environment. So this is called as parallel upgrade activity, upgrade in parallel. For a brief, very small duration in time, you will have two environments running. So your robots or end users will have like an old orchestrator URL and a new orchestrator URL. Generally, a URL changes because your infra and underlying web server is changing, right? So there has to be like a transition that has to be planned, and the risk is quite low in this case. So if there are any surprises or any issues, they can be first fixed in the parallel environment, and only after you are like very comfortable with the new environment, you can go about performing the parallel upgrade. In today's session, we're going to look for the upgrade
Sorry
in place.
for the interruption. Do we get any parallel environment license from the UiPath? Because when we are trying to upgrade.
So if you have a enterprise license, right, with UiPath, there is something called as a trial license key. You can work with the account team or sales team. They issue something like a trial license key, which comes with only 30 or 45, exact duration, I don't know. It is between 30 or 45 days. And it's like whenever that key is activated, from that day, it will have a 45 days of grace period. After 45 days, it will be like exact clone of your existing environment. They will give you a new key, which you can deploy in the parallel
Use it
environment.
in parallel.
Yeah, but after 45 days, you have to either retire the old key or the new key. You cannot go beyond it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. So today's session, I think we'll keep it simple. We'll go with the in-place upgrade. That's what most of the customers choose because there is a cost associated with bringing in the new infra, but it also comes in handy in some of the scenarios. So just wanted to highlight that in the slide pack. The next slide talks about different stages of an upgrade activity. So these are the 4 stages: plan, prepare, execute, and monitor. In the planning phase, obviously, the first step will be to determine why you want to upgrade, which is the version you want to go about, select the approach, whether it's going to be an in-place upgrade or a parallel upgrade. Depending on that, involve the underlying teams like your IT team, infra security team, business stakeholders, because there will be like a small downtime or a cutover activity that you will undergo, right? So keep the underlying stakeholders informed in advance. So that all of these will come in a planning phase. Once the planning has been conducted, then comes the preparation part. Like you have determined what the plan is looking like. You can create a, a list of activities that you are going to do like as a prerequisite check and on the execution day and during the monitoring phase. So usually customers prepare like a project plan or a execution plan in the planning phase also. Once the planning is completed, we will move into the preparation phase. Here we will like as you asked, if it's a parallel setup, you will do the license assessment, you'll do the security assessment. You will get involved if you're using premium services. You'll involve either UiPath infra team or your TAM to take a look at the prerequisites, whether everything is in place or not. You'll create like a rollback plan. So let's say if something goes wrong on the execution day, you want to roll back to the previous stable state. So all of that will come in the preparation phase. Once preparation is done on the execution day, first we'll start with the first execution will be typically on a non-production and recommended on a non-production environment. Before starting the upgrade activity, we have to like communicate to all the stakeholders, have the database and IT infra team on standby. If they can be on call, great. Otherwise, at least have them on standby so that they'll be available, because people may not have rights to all the different or privileges to different activities that may be needed to be done from a DBA or a server admin point of view. So have the relevant teams on the call. If you are planning the studio upgrade along with the orchestrator upgrade, then it's very important to also back up all your automation code, workflow files. Make sure that you have baselined all your code and checked into your version control, JIT or TFS, whatever you're using. From an orchestrator point of view, it's very important to back up a few things. So you have to back up you have to take a snapshot of your database, orchestrator database, and it should be like a restorable copy of your UiPath database backup. So one important thing to note here is sometimes customers or people who are performing the upgrade take entire server backup. You don't need to take the entire instance backup, though you can choose to do that, but it's an overkill. You can just take a full backup of the UiPath Orchestrator database itself, and it should be like a restorable copy. So if something goes wrong, you should be able to roll back to the previous version of the stable version of the database. And the configuration files. We'll look at the which configuration files, but it's also good to take a backup of the Windows OS snapshot, like the web server image snapshot, because in a rollback scenario, config files and database together will help you roll back to the previous state. Also, there is a inbuilt logic within the installer or upgrade wizard itself to roll back to the previous steady state if it encounters an error, it rolls back the deployment. But if in an event, if the rollback also fails, then we have to use this database backup or the config backup to restore your environment. So if we restore with just these two, config file and database, then some of the settings like IAAS settings or your registry settings or the control panel registration of the software may get lost. So that's why we also recommend teams to take the Windows snapshot backup so that you can just restore the Windows image and the database image, and you're like good to start the sanity again on the previous version. So these are the backup related activities. Also, before starting the upgrade, it's important to stop all the running jobs or any triggers that you have. So if your number of robots and jobs are low, you can just go to the orchestrator UI and stop it from there. But UiPath Orchestrator APIs also exposes one API. We look at a Swagger example where um, you can put the orchestrator in maintenance mode using this API, and you can drain all the running job triggers and existing jobs and stop all the jobs from this maintenance mode APIs to ensure that nothing is running when you trigger the upgrade, or nothing will run, nothing new will get triggered when your orchestrator is in upgrade mode. One more thing which is not listed here is it is good to do the database maintenance activity. So there is a database maintenance link. We'll probably share that out after the call. So all your transactional data goes and sits in the orchestrator database. And during the upgrade, what happens is your database schema a lot of time changes from the older version to new version of orchestrator. So orchestrator upgrade wizard tries to migrate all the data to the new schema, and if your transactional data size is quite huge, then your upgrade activity will take that much more time. Also, it degrades your orchestrator performance, to say the least. So if you're doing regular maintenance backups, then it's well and good, but if not, it's good to plan that activity at least as a one-time activity before you plan your upgrade, so that it will ease your upgrade effort a great deal. Okay, so these all things come in the execution phase, and ultimately in the monitor part, let's say everything goes fine, your orchestrator is upgraded, you maybe choose to upgrade your studio and robot versions also. Your CR is completed, you did a basic sanity, but for the next couple of weeks, you should keep a tab on like any bug, anything that breaks in production. You can create, if it's an urgent issue like multiple bots impacted, you can create like a high priority or a urgent priority ticket with your UiPath support team, and they'll be happy to kind of assist you with any customer impacting scenario. And once you are like comfortable, it will be a BAU to business as usual for you to work on the new environment. If you in an event, if you have chosen a parallel upgrade scenario, then you will probably decommission the old orchestrator setup if you are using like two different environments, parallel environments. I hope this is clear, like different stages involved in the upgrade activity. So some key considerations also I've listed here, like always prepare like a upgrade plan and a rollback plan whenever you're planning for an upgrade activity. Uh, Take backups of the config files, database, package repositories, and also if possible, in all environments it's not possible, but sometimes uh, uh, customer don't agree to it, but it's highly recommended you also take a Windows OS snapshot of the web server. Um, in terms of the workflows, it should be checked into your JIT. For any dependencies, you can, as a good practice, you can set runtime rule to strict. Second last point is also important. So since you're anyways touching your infra and you're performing the upgrade, it's a good practice to also check the SSL certificate on the web server. If it is due to expire, maybe after the upgrade is complete, you can also perform the certificate rotation on the web server so that you can maybe extend the validity of your certificate if they are due to expire anytime soon. If they have a long-term validity, then no need to touch it, but it can be a good practice to also take a look. This is not mandatory, but it's a good practice to check the validity of your certificates. Some other settings, like usually orchestrator upgrade wizard, make sure that it doesn't touch any of your preferences that you have set on the orchestrator. Any kind of preferences will be retained, but it is a good practice to also validate the SMTP server settings. If you set any alerts, and you've specified the SMTP server configuration, then make sure that those are intact after the upgrade. If you have set up, let's say Windows authentication or Azure Active Directory authentication, all of those are intact. So any customizations that you have done, it will be good to keep a list of all of those handy before the upgrade, so that once the upgrade is successfully completed, you can perform all that sanity in one go. So there are some links also, which documentation links, which are available in the slide notes. So when you'll take a look at this presentation, do refer them. They're quite handy links, detailed links mentioned in the documentation, so you can go through those in detail. Okay, so this was the theory part. Now comes the fun part. We'll try to dive into the demo of the orchestrator upgrade scenario. So before we proceed with the upgrade, I wanted to kind of show you the setup which we are going to use. It's Orchestrator 2022.4 version, 2022.4.x, but we have chosen like a multi-node IAAS setup scenario. It's a standalone orchestrator. It's not part of the automation suite. It's like a standalone component. So this is how the architecture is. Like we've created a network load balancer. This is Azure load balancer which we are using, and behind it we are having two orchestrator nodes. So two orchestrator nodes means two different orchestrator Windows web servers. Since there are two different web servers, there has to be like a common storage location where all my workflow packages can be uploaded and they'll go and sit. So for the storage server, we can use like a shared folder, but for this demo, I'm using a Azure blob storage. And since again this is a multi-node scenario, so we need to have like a HA Redis component. So the two orchestrator nodes, the session data remains in sync. We had covered this concept in the multi-node installation scenario. You can revisit that. So this is the same architecture which we had built in the last session. We are going to expand it further for the upgrade scenario. So we have a HA component which is linked to the two orchestrator web orchestrator nodes, keeping them in sync. And behind this, we have a Microsoft SQL Server. It's a PAAS SQL Microsoft SQL Server service deployed on Azure. Elasticsearch is an optional component to push the orchestrator log output. We are not using that. This is an optional component. We'll not be using this for the demo today. So this is how the architecture is set up, which is currently on 2022.4 IAAS infrastructure as a service setup. So we'll be using this for upgrading to 2023.4 version today. Okay. So with that, we can start with the demo. So first, like I'll just walk you through the sequence of the demo also. So since we have two orchestrator node, we will be performing the upgrade of the orchestrator web server components first. So this will be the sequence of operations we'll try to do. First, we will directly run the upgrade wizard on before running the upgrade. Also, I will kind of show you how the orchestrator is built up. I'll walk you through the Azure configurations, and I'll also show you the different checks that you need to do before starting the upgrade activity. Once we trigger the upgrade, first step will be to trigger the upgrade on first node, which we call it as a primary node. And on that node, we will upgrade from 2022.4 to 23.4. It will be like a command that we will run in PowerShell to trigger the upgrade with logs. And while that upgrade is happening, I will try to give you a walkthrough of the upgrade. It takes somewhere close to 10 to 15 minutes. So I'll try to use that time to show you the HAA component. Meanwhile, like how I'm not using the HAA cluster. I'm just using one Redis single HAA node for today's session. And I'll walk you through how the HAA node is built up during that time. And once the primary node is upgraded, while the upgrade is going on, we'll stop the IIS on both the nodes. And once the primary node is upgraded, we'll bring up the primary node. We'll try to do a sanity on the primary node. And if everything is looking good, what we will do is we'll use this generate parameter files PowerShell utility. And using this utility, we will create a parameter.json file. This parameter will copy all the configuration from the primary node. We'll copy that JSON file to the secondary server, the second web server, and we will pass that as an input to trigger the upgrade on second orchestrator, the second orchestrator web server. So here, if you see, there will be some parameters will pass. First parameter will be the JSON file. Second parameter will be this flag, secondary node equal to 1. So what this will indicate the installer is, this is a secondary node, so no need to build the configuration and database again. Instead, read everything from this file and only build the web server part. Don't redeploy the database. And this confirm block classic execution is like a it's like a setting. So this is to block any classic folder executions. In 23.4, we are encouraging and people to move to the modern folder, and we are bringing in this feature where if this flag is set, it will block all your classic folder based executions. So user needs to give a consent. So when it is happening on the primary node, you will see a pop-up to okay this consent, but in the secondary node, the upgrade happens in a passive mode. It happens in a silent mode. It doesn't ask or prompt the user to give any inputs. So since it's happening in the passive mode, we will pass this parameter as uh, 1 is equal to 1 value. The next parameter will be for creating the log. L star vx is like generate log parameter, and we are specifying the file name. So upgrade log.txt will be the file in which all the logs, upgrade logs will get populated. Once this upgrade is done, we will keep the web server 1 IAS down, and we'll start web server 2 IAS, and we will do a sanity pointing to web server 2. Once everything is looking good, we will start both the web servers and we'll begin our validation. So once these steps are completed, both my primary and secondary node web server will be upgraded to 23.4 version. However, my HA will be still on the older version. So there is no hard requirement to have HA on the same version or the latest version. If you are upgrading to latest version of Orchestrator, there is a backward compatibility that exists between it, but it is recommended to upgrade your HA also along with the Orchestrator to keep them. If you HA will be only required if you are having a multi-node setup, but if you are upgrading both your Orchestrator nodes, and it's a good practice to also upgrade the HA nodes. So I'm not going to upgrade it in the cluster. I've just brought one single HA node. Normally in a production scenario, you'll have a HA cluster where you'll have 3 different HA Linux nodes. But for the sake of demo and for the sake of time check, we'll just use single node setup, HA setup, and I'll upgrade the HA. So in order to upgrade the HA, this is on a Linux RHEL machine. We'll have to, there is no wizard that we can directly run, how we can run on Orchestrator web server machine to trigger the MSI and it will upgrade everything. Here we have to perform an uninstall script, which will uninstall the current version of your HA, and then you can run a fresh installation pointing to the latest version, and it will upgrade the latest version. So again, when we are doing this, we have to ensure that we turn off the Redis flag in the orchestrator and make it a single node setup by keeping one of the IIS node down. And then we can upgrade the HA. Once the HA is upgraded and we have done a sanity on the HA, then we can make the we can turn on the Redis flag again in both the orchestrator nodes, and we can do the sanity of the entire setup. So this is going to be our sequence of events of the demo. If you have any questions, let me know before I dive into the demo. Okay, so I spoke about the maintenance mode. So there is a Swagger URL that I'm listing here, right? So before I go there, let me show you the current setup also. So this is the URL which will be using community session.timindiaorchestrator.the domain. So this is basically the load balancer URL. So as you would have seen in the architecture diagram, this is the load balancer we'll be hitting, and load balancer will be routing the traffic to the orchestrator web server nodes. So to show you the configuration very quickly, I'll not go too much into detail about it, but just to give you a heads up on like how the setup is built. So we have the load balancer configuration on Azure. So this is my load balancer, Time India HALB is the load balancer name. And behind this is where I'm having my two orchestrator web server nodes, right? So So while this comes up, I'll also show you the two orchestrator server nodes that I'm going to use for the demo. Okay, so if it's come up, this is the load balancer, and if you look at the load balancer configuration, this is part of the Time India community series. We have created a new resource group on Azure, and in the backend pool section, we have put the two virtual machines like orchestrator node 1 web server and orchestrator node 2 web server. So this node 1 is my web server 1 where I have hosted my orchestrator, and node 2 is the web server 2. So I have remoted into, I'll be remoting RDPing into the node 1 and node 2 machines, and that is where we'll perform the upgrade activity. So these two sit in the backend pool of the orchestrator. So if you see here, I've clicked on the backend pool, and these two machines are in the backend pool of my orchestrator. So any incoming request will hit the load balancer. Load balancer will see which are the underlying machines which are in the backend pool and on which port they are configured to listen. So I've created a health probe that listens to port 443. Port 443 is going to be the binding, is the current binding of the orchestrator URL. So orchestrator is listening to port 443 on both of these machines, and it will redirect traffic to either of this or both of this node depending on which of the node is healthy state. Similarly, I have also configured the Azure storage. So we are going to use this storage. Time India Community Storage is the Azure blob name that I have created. And inside this, as you can see, we already have the containers created. So I've kept the configuration ready already in the orchestrator config. And we had seen this in the last chapter series where when we build the multi-node orchestrator installation, when we build the node, in the orchestrator web config, there is a section where you can specify the storage definition. So storage definition is set to Azure, and we have specified the connection string from the access key section. So we can pick the key from here, and we can just take this connection string, and this is being referred in the web config of the orchestrator config DLL. So our orchestrator is pointing to this Azure blob storage container, and already if you can see there are like few packages. When we upload them to the orchestrator, they will come and sit here. Typically, orchestrator stores it on the same server. By default, the setting is set to storage and file system. So wherever the orchestrator is deployed, it is usually deployed in C program files, UiPath Orchestrator, and inside that orchestrator build location, there will be a storage location where all these packages will go and sit. But in a multi-node scenario, what happens is you need to have syncing between two different nodes. So both the nodes need to point to the same storage location. So that is where either you need to have like a shared storage and you can specify that path, or you can use the Azure blob storage. Okay, so this is the blob storage which we are going to use. And lastly, if you look at this diagram, we have the database and we have the HAA setup. So HAA setup is built on this Linux node. So if you look at this node, I have C, OPT, Redis Labs, and bin folder. So here is where my Redis is deployed, and if I look at the status of Redis, there is a single node setup. There is only one database, one node, which is the master node, and it is in OK status right now. So my orchestrator is also pointing to this Redis environment. If I have to look at the database, then this is a SQL Server database which I'm using. So I've created a PAAS SQL instance, and in this, this connection string is provided to the orchestrator installer wizard to point to this SQL database backend. So we'll log into the orchestrator. So before we go ahead with the orchestrator upgrade, first we'll sign into the orchestrator to see how the orchestrator, what kind of entities are hosted in the orchestrator. So this is my current version of orchestrator, as you can see, 22.4.6. I've already applied a license to it, and just for the demo sake, I have created a few entities within this orchestrator. So license is already applied. There is one user with my own name I have created, a small machine template that I have created here, right? And I have mapped this user and this machine to the shared folder. And at a folder level, I have created one process. Also, there are this couple of packages which we saw in the orchestrator Azure, in the Azure blob container are also available in the package section. I have the processes created pointing to the test logging package. I have also run one or two jobs in history so that there is some historic transactional data. Logs corresponding to these jobs are also there. And after, along with this also, we have like a small test asset and a queue asset created. So this will give us like some reference point which we will want to validate after the upgrade is completed. So these are like some of the transactional data or some of the entities within the orchestrator which you'll typically validate after your upgrade is completed. So I've just populated some of these examples for you. So before starting with the upgrade, you will check if the backup is in place, if the database has been backed up, if the config files have been backed up. Since this is an Azure storage, Azure automatically backs all of that up. So I'm not validating that, but in a normal scenario, you should go ahead and verify that everything is been properly backed up. Once you have verified that, go ahead and check that the orchestrator, before starting the upgrade, everything is looking fine on the orchestrator. There are no active jobs which are running. So I don't have any active jobs that I need to stop. If there are a small number of jobs, then you can just come here and stop it. Otherwise, if you have large number of processes, robots, your setup is quite huge, then you can go to the Swagger API. So this is the Swagger API, right? In that, there is you can go to the maintenance section and there is a post method for starting the maintenance activity. So this will this activity will this if you trigger this API, it will put the orchestrator in maintenance mode. By default, it will put it for all tenants, but if you want to do it only for a specific tenant, then you can specify the tenant ID, and then you can put it uh, in the suspended mode or in the training mode. Once your activity is completed, you can end the maintenance window using this end maintenance API. So this we will recommend you to do only if like you have a very big list of jobs or uh, very huge setup which you cannot manually shut down or manually disable. Otherwise, do it through the UI, whichever way you are flexible and find more control. Okay, so with that, I'll take you to my orchestrator node 1. So we call it orc node 1. Just change the wallpaper of this so that you know which node we are in. So as you can see here, the IAAS is in running state. Let me just validate that. Let's refresh the node. So you can see that orchestrator is in running state and the traffic is being routed here to this orchestrator also. So we'll do some checks. So as you can see, this is the certificate which I'm using. So we can validate that by going to the orchestrator folder and within that the bindings. So if I go to the bindings and edit bindings, this is the star.tamindia orchestrator dot the domain is the certificate name. So I can open the certificate store and I can in the personal certificates I can see that this certificate exists. So I can check the validity that is valid for another year. So I don't need to worry about this for now. Um, I see that my orchestrator is in healthy state. All my jobs are stopped. So I'm kind of good to trigger my upgrade, right? So before I trigger the upgrade, also I'll show you the configuration that I spoke about. So these are important config files, right? So let me also maybe back up these configs before I even start the upgrade. So I'll go to the orchestrator build path. I assume that by this time we would have anyways taken a Windows OS snapshot backup, but uh, just for reference sake, I can also take a backup of the config files. So I'll create one folder for backup here, and I'll put the DLL config file over here, and also I can go to the identity, and in the identity I can look for JSON, and I can look for the app setting.production.json file and put that over here, right? So my backup is also ready. Uh, just to very quickly show you the configuration. So in the orchestrator DLL config file, I will have my Redis entry. So my Redis flag is set to true and the connection string is provided here. If I want to look at the storage, I can just search for storage key. And by default, it will point to the file system storage. So I've commented the file system storage and I'm pointing to the Azure blob. That's why when I upload the package, you see the containers getting populated on Azure blob, right? So I've just given the connection string here and my database. My database connection string is also pointing to the SQL PAAS instance, which I have given, right? So all of that is in place. Similar entries I can find in, for Redis, I can find in the app setting production JSON file also. So everything is in place. So I think I'll go ahead and initiate the upgrade now. So first thing I'll do is I'll come to the orchestrator node and go ahead and stop the IAAS. So this is my,
During upgrading, this is Kamala. I have one question. During
yeah.
upgrading, that server name is going to change, correct?
No, server name in this case will not change, Kamla, because this is a in-place upgrade. We are not bringing in any new
Okay.
orchestrator web server. So the underlying URL is nothing but my load balancer URL, right? And behind that, the nodes are not going to
Okay,
change.
okay. There is
So,
no server change, just
yeah,
only the same server version is only getting upgraded, correct?
that is correct. That is correct. Because
Okay,
we
okay.
are going ahead with the in-place upgrade, not the parallel upgrade. Because this is the most common scenario that we see where people usually choose for in-place upgrade only because there is a lot of
Okay.
operational overhead in the other scenario. So I'm stopping both the nodes now. Okay. So in order to trigger the upgrade, let's also look at the documentation. So uh, if you the documentation link is in the PPT, but if you look at the documentation in the orchestrator section on the left side, there is a section called as updating the orchestrator. So if you go to updating using Windows Windows installer part, it will explain you both the scenarios. The first section will talk about this section will talk about a single node scenario. Single node scenario is quite simple. Just you'll have only one node, so you can whatever will run on primary node, that will be the only thing you'll do. There is no HA or no second node concept. But we're going to look at the multi-node example today. So here is what we'll do, right? So we'll go to the multi-node part. So on the first node, we will run this command. Like I'll be skipping this command because this is the parameter generation step, which we'll do after the upgrade. But I'll use this command. So I've already built this command on my node 1. So I'll go to the location where my MSI is kept and I'll trigger that MSI with this parameter. With this, I'll not use this, but I'll just say generate a log file of this name wherever I'm triggering the. So I'll navigate to the path where 23.4 installer is kept. So it's in the download folder. I've created a folder for 23.4 setup. So I'll open PowerShell in admin mode. I'll navigate to this path and I can execute this command. So it will find this MSI on that path and it will tell that MSI that trigger the MSI with this log generation step. Then I can also monitor that monitor the logs of the upgrade within the PowerShell window itself to see what the installer is doing by this command. Okay. Once the node 1 is done, I'll show you how to generate the parameter file manually. So if you look at the documentation, they have embedded that step. You can do it along with the upgrade itself, but I will show you the step separately for the sake of clarity. Okay. Once the file is generated, we'll copy that to node 2 and we'll run this command on the second server. So there will be passing the secondary node equal to 1 and the parameter file reference to trigger the upgrade on second node, and then we'll run the same command to monitor the logs. Okay. So with that, I will go ahead and start the upgrade. First step is I'll navigate to the path. Okay. And now I can trigger this upgrade. Yeah, so you can see it has triggered the upgrade, and here it would have created a file called as upgrade logs.txt. Now I want to see what's happening in this file. So I can just run this command get content and tail last 10 lines of this file within PowerShell itself. So it will first do all the prerequisite checks and everything. And Wizard will take some time. Basically, it will take 10 to 15 minutes to upgrade this. But by the time this will upgrade, we'll go to the next part. Like I'll show you the HA setup also. But we'll stay here till the upgrade installer like kicks in. So in the background, as you can see, it is like beginning to perform some of the operations, and you can see the logs refreshing in the background. Since I've stopped the IAAS, like nobody will be able to access the. I've stopped it on both the nodes, so pretty much my URL is inactive at this stage. So now the prerequisite checks are completed. It will ask me to accept the license terms. So this is the check that I was saying, that it asks me to read this note disclaimer that we are blocking the classic folder job execution in this window, and I've completed the database maintenance activity. And if not, I can cancel and I can do that and come back. Otherwise, I'll hit OK. So now it is reading the preferences from the config file. In my previous version, I did not have insights or test automation enabled, so it's in disabled state. I'll keep it that way. I'll proceed to the next. So now it has triggered the installer. One thing that I want to call out here is, let's say if you are coming from a lower version, something like 20.10. So in 21.10 or 22.4, some new features were introduced. Like if you are coming from below 2019, then we did not have identity feature in the orchestrator. So identity has its own database and has its own certificate related requirements. So in that case, the upgrade wizard will ask you to input those fields. So you can keep those values handy from the config file, and you can key in to the wizard when the wizard asks you. Similarly, if you are moving from 20.10 to 21.10, in 21.10 there was a feature for um, triggering updates through the orchestrator, like studio updates through orchestrator. So there was a new database schema for that which was created. So it will ask you to provide database details. So again, you can keep that handy and you can key in if the orchestrator upgrade wizard asks you. Don't I mean the experience will slightly vary depending on what your source and destination environment of the orchestrator is. And ultimately, like in this case, I think probably like between 22.4 and 23.4, no new schema or no new underlying architecture change was there. So pretty much everything that the upgrade wizard needed to perform the upgrade was already there in the config files. So using that, it is triggering the upgrade. So typically what it does is like it will first uninstall so it will back up your build folder in a temporary cache location, and then it will uninstall your, once it has done that, it will uninstall your current version of Orchestrator from the virtual directory, and it will also remove all the registration that it has done in the registry files control panel of the Windows. So it is at that step right now. Once this step is successfully completed, that means like your old backup snapshot is created by a wizard, and it has removed old traces from the web server, old traces of the application from the web server. After that, it will start deploying the new files. So it will again create a rollback point for every step, and it will, once this is completed, it will deregister the old product. It will start now it is starting to copy the new files on the web server related to the new build 23.4 version of the build. Once this step is completed, it will create a virtual directory and point the build to the virtual directory. These are all the activities it will do on the web server. Once the web server activities are completed, then it will go to the database upgrade schema. So whatever schema changes have happened between the 22.4 version and 23.4 version, that job will kick in after the web server snapshot is upgraded. At any event, if you cancel the setup or if it encounters any error, then it will try to roll back to the previous stable state automatically. Okay, so while it is doing this, it will take some time to upgrade the upgrade node 1, and especially the database upgrade step takes like around 5 to 10 minutes. So in interest of time, I will also take you to the Redis nodes, and we'll kind of look through the documentation of the Redis installer. Right. So okay, so again, going back to our architecture diagram, right now we are upgrading the node 1 of the orchestrator, right? So we're upgrading the web orchestrator node. Uh, our sequence is going to be like we'll upgrade web node 1, then web node 2, and once web node 2 is done, then we'll go to the HA node. So I think the steps by now you will be like familiar with what steps we are going to do on node 1 and node 2. But what we are going to do on the HA node, let's look at that also. So in the HA setup, it's like you cannot run any wizard directly. So first step is going to be to run a uninstaller. Uninstaller is triggered using uninstall is triggered using this command rl underscore. We can just trigger this script, and this script will take care of like removing the current cluster directly. Once the removal is completed, then you can follow the same steps which we did to install the setup, right? So I have listed all those commands basically. So I'll just quickly walk you through those commands also. So basically after the upgrade, after the uninstall is complete, we'll go to the directory where I want to download the installer package file. So um, I've already created this directory. So I'll show you. So, so if you see here, already there is a UiPath directory created, right? And inside UiPath, I already have all these files. We'll clean this directory again, like we'll remove all these files, and then we'll download the new package using this command, using this wget command. All these other commands also are supposed to be done, but since I've already built this node, all these prerequisites are already in place. So I will run this wget command. This will download the installer. This gethaa.sh is the installer script. I'll download it at this location, at this UiPath folder location. So it will create this file. I will give it permissions, to full permissions to execute using this command, chmod a+x gethaa.sh. I'll remove all the networking requirements by removing all the firewalls. And basically this is the command that I will trigger to build my HA node. So I will trigger the gethaa.sh installer. I'll specify the username password, and I'll specify the OS version. So I'm using Red Hat Linux 8.4 and accepting the terms of licenses. I'll trigger the installer. Once the installer is triggered, then essentially it will create this folder, Redis Labs folder, which I was in. So I go to Redis Labs. Inside that there will be this bin folder where all the executables of Redis will get installed, right? So we can do a sanity using the RL check command. If everything is good, then it means our HA is upgraded and good to be used. So now the web server is upgraded. It is trying to update the database server to the new version. You can see the log file size growing. Anyone has any questions while the upgrade wizard is running? Feel free to unmute yourself and ask. Says database upgrade
Hey,
completed
this
here.
is Kamla.
Yeah.
That HAA upgrade, right? For HAA upgrade, orchestrator can be up, right? For this version upgrade, orchestrator is down.
Yeah.
So once this is up, then we can do HAA update, but as a background mode, correct?
That is right. So you can convert your multi-node setup to a single node setup.
Yes. Correct.
And then you can keep it. I think it could not start the IAAS, so it's trying to roll back. Maybe it could not find permissions for that. Check that. But Kamla, you're right. Like we can trigger the upgrade of HA without disturbing the. I mean, orchestrator can still be live when you trigger the HA upgrade.
Yeah, thanks.
So as it encountered a failure in terms of trying to start the IAS, it has initiated a rollback procedure. What I will do is, in interest of time, right, I will re-trigger this upgrade again. But while this upgrade is going on, maybe Priyesh, if you want to run the quiz.
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone.
Thank you.
So let's have a quick quiz over here. I hope everyone has joined the Slido. The quiz is going to be on Slido. So if you have not joined it, I'll give everyone a minute to join in.
It's the same link, right, which you shared earlier?
Yes, it's the
Yes.
same
Yeah,
one.
yeah. So I've just posted the link to that once again on the chat. So anyone who has not been able to join, you can just click on that link and join.
And if you want to scan, then you can always use this. I'm sharing my screen. Okay, everyone can see the barcode over here on the left. Okay, then let's start the quiz. So this is your first question. So you will get 15 seconds for this. Okay, so I can see 67% people have answered 2020.10, 17 have answered 21.10. So let's see what is the correct answer. The correct answer is 2020.10. For 21.10, okay, we have two 21.10 over here. I think it might be a mistake. But yeah, for 21.10, again, we have another year. So, you know, in 2024, October, it will end the extended support. But yeah, for this year, October 23, 2022.10 will be going out of support. Let's see whom we have on the leaderboard. So at the moment, EO, and then we have, with 9 seconds is leading. Let's go to the next question. So we have 33% with the website files backup and then 33% on certificate backup. The correct answer is certificate backup. You still need to take the website files backup, like config files needs to be backed up. The data backup is also important. However, certificate backup is not needed because you will be reusing the existing certificate. Okay, let's see. So now we have changes in the position, but yeah, we have Jitin at the top now. Let's go to the next question. Okay. Select the correct option from the below. It is mandated to upgrade HA along with Orchestrator. 15% had answered yes. And then 85% has answered it is not mandatory. Let's see the correct answer. So the correct answer is it's not mandatory to upgrade HA. However, the recommendation is always, if you're upgrading Orchestrator, if there is a latest version of Redis which is available, you should always go for an upgrade. Let's see. So, okay, we have tough competition between EO and Jitin over here. So, yeah, let's move to the next question. So it says select the correct option from the below. It is more on the Redis front, like how we should install it. Let's see what is the correct answer. So the correct answer is you should uninstall the HA version and then freshly install the latest one. There is no in-place upgrade for HA. Okay, let's see. So, okay, we have EO leading leaderboard at the moment. Here's the next question. Okay. So we have 89% on UiPath Orchestrator on DLL, and then 56% on app settings production.json. What is the correct answer? So we have two items. So if you remember, while Shreyas was showing the demo, we have taken backup for these two files. Right. So in both these files, we do have connection string for HAA. See, okay, no one has given the correct answer for this one. Okay. Let's go on to the next one. Seventy-nine percent has given multi-node orchestrator upgrade. See, and that is the correct answer. So yeah, we again have Jitin and EO onto the table at the top. Let's go to the next one. Now this is a trick question. You have not seen anything on PAAS. However, it will be on your gut feel like what could be the right answer for this. We will be covering this thing in the demo today. Okay, I can see 75% goes to upgrade. However, upgrade is not the correct answer. It should be the update thing. So yeah, when we go on to PAAS, we will be covering that, like what kind of scripts we create and what kind of actions we pass over there. So let's see. We have EO leading the table and answered 6 out of 7 questions in 1 minute and 18 seconds. And then we have Shri, Jitin on the table along with Chandra Singh Jadeja with 5 each from 7. So yeah.
Awesome. So who is this EO? Can you raise your hand? EO. Aileen. Hi, Aileen. I would request you to just send me an email on this email ID that I'm writing right now. I have a special gift for you. Yeah.
Okay.
Just say hi, and I'll respond to that email, Aileen. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Yes.
And with that,
Perfect.
I'll hand over the controls back to Shreyas to continue the installation. Shreyas?
Yeah, Shreyas, we have like 15 more minutes to close. Yeah.
Sure. Rohit, I think we have a 2-hour session today, right? No?
It's yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I missed that.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh.
Cool. Congrats to the winners and great participation, guys. Most of you got all of the questions right, or nearly all of the questions right. So good to see everyone paying attention. Hope you take something back from today's session. So while Priyesh was conducting the quiz, I have re-triggered the installer again. So again, it will take some time to execute. Last time it failed because maybe the installer could not find the rights to restart. We had kept the IAAS in stopped mode, or the application pools were in stopped mode. So this time I'm keeping it on. But the assumption is we would have notified the stakeholders by now that the setup is going to be down, so no one will be using the setup, even though the IIS is up on this node. So it is still like in the state where it is performing the cleanup of files, and it will install the build, and then it will try to uh, it will try to deploy the new database. So while it is doing that, again, in the interest of time, what I'll do is I'll also show you parallelly the HA upgrade activity. I was planning to cover it after I build both the nodes, but that will take some time, it seems. So what I'll do is I'll start building my HA also parallelly. So let's assume that I already have in this case, it's the latest version of HA only. So I'm just uninstalling it and reinstalling the same version. But in a typical scenario, if you're coming from a lower version of Orchestrator, multi-node Orchestrator, then your HA will also be like a old version of HA. So we will follow this list of this link and the commands which we just saw to trigger the update. So first step that we had seen was basically a uninstall, right? So first I'll have to find this file rl underscore uninstall.sh, and all of these commands require admin permission. So what I'll do is I'll clear the terminal first. So sudo su, if you do this, this gives you like admin rights, super user privileges. And typically, unless you have like custom changed the Redis installation directory, Redis will be installed in this path. So it will be cd opt. Under your root directory, you will have opt, and under opt, you will have Redis labs, and under that you will have bin. This is where all the Redis installer binaries will be placed. And if you can see here I have my rl underscore uninstall.sh file available. So I can just trigger that. So if I trigger this, it is started uninstalling my cluster. So this will be the first step to remove the current cluster configuration. It will again take a few minutes. So while it does that, let's revisit. Our installer is progressing on node 1. It is trying to go to the database step. And parallelly, my HA is also getting cleaned up. So it has stopped the Redis service, and now it's erasing the old snapshot of the cluster. this time it has gone through. It has basically it has installed. It has deployed the database, and now it's beginning to install the new activities on the web server. So any new libraries or any activities which are published in the orchestrator source, they will now get deployed. Now I think it has done that also successfully. So it's trying to remove the backup cache. Meanwhile, my HA is also uninstalled. So if I go to my Node 1 machine, and if I try to browse the HA, I think it is not connecting anymore. So my cluster is uninstalled. And I think parallelly, the orchestrator upgrade on Node 1 is also complete. So since my orchestrator Node 1 is pointing to the HA, let's quickly build the HA node. So as I said, I will, now the uninstall is complete. So I will go to the the directory which I created. So UiPath is the directory, giving it permissions, right? So now here is where I'm going to install the package, the installation package, right? So I will go ahead and execute this command. So if you can see, I should have probably deleted the old installer. So for that, I can do rm -r, recursively remove and forcefully remove all files. So I have removed all. Now I'm doing a list. I'm not seeing anything in this directory. I'll download the package again. So wget is the command to download on Linux. So I can see the get.sh file is downloaded from the internet, and just need to give it full permissions to execute. So I'm giving it all read write execute permissions. Just verify that no firewall. So these are all the ports which need to be open on the Linux machine too, and these are the different protocols for HA to function. So I'm just ensuring that already enabled means like this port is already enabled and there is no firewall running. So we are good. So everything is a success. So I can basically trigger the installer using this command now. So the installer is started. It will decompress the installer package and it will start installing HA on this node. So while
Hey, this is Kamala. Sorry, I have one query meanwhile.
sure,
Why
Kamala.
we use download.uipath.com and wget I see that command?
You mean this command?
Yes.
This is to basically download the package. So like how you are downloading the installer or MSI package for the orchestrator wizard, right? You would have gone to a different download.uipath.com /orchestrator/version. That will be the path for the MSI installer. For HAA, this is the path. So in Linux, it's like a shell script. So if I download this on Windows, right, it will basically download one shell script file, sh file. I can open that in Notepad++ or TextPad, and basically I can see the content of that executable.
Just we are downloading the shell script here, correct?
Correct.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, and I can also see the like if I want to debug, right, I can also see the contents of that shell script by doing like a VI editor or a nano of that file. I can see what are the contents written in that shell script. So when I do this dot get ha.sh, I'm executing that script, and these are the different parameters. So I'm passing it a username, I'm passing it a password, I'm passing the OS version. Using this, it will build a cluster.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's see what happened here. If I look at the node is ready. Basically, it has installed the new orchestrator version, and it is in started state. So let me quickly, I can't test it because my HA is still building, but I can just verify the version in control panel. So if you see here, UiPath Orchestrator version is updated to 2023.4.1. So my upgrade is successfully completed. So my virtual directory is basically now pointing to the new version of the orchestrator. Also, my HA installation is complete here. So if you can see, it says installation of HA complete. How can I verify this? So I'll again go to OPT Redis Labs bin, right? So here there is a utility called as RL check. Let's run this. It will check whether all the services are running. So it's saying all tests passed. I can also check the RL admin status, will give me the status of the cluster. So there is this node 1. Node 1 is built, and this is the same IP that we have given in the config file, the private IP of this node, and the status is okay. So another test that I can do is I can go to the orchestrator node, and if I try to browse the 8443 of this private IP port, then I should be able to. This is the port through which it exposes the Redis administrative portal, HA portal. So I can go to this port. I can specify the username through which I created the cluster. And I can see the node is ready. Database is ready. Redis is nothing but like a cache database, right? So it is having, currently it's not having any, it is having some keys because I think the orchestrator is already up and it is pointing to this one. So I can also like go ahead and flush out all the old keys if I don't want. So in order to do that, and this is mentioned in the documentation also. So if one good practice is whenever you are doing an orchestrator upgrade, basically it will be good if you can flush out all the old, even if you're choosing not to upgrade the HA component, it's an optional part but a recommended part. It's always a good practice to flush out all the Redis keys, the cached keys. So you can do that using this command. So you can go to the Redis CLI. You can specify the Redis CLI, what is the IP and password through which you want to connect to port 10,000 where the database is hosted, right? And execute this. If I say flush all, so it says okay. Basically, if I do get keys now, it should say nil. So it has removed all those 11 or 9 keys, whatever I had, right? So now my orchestrator is up, my Redis is up. So let's see if we can browse the orchestrator. Let me verify my node 2. My node 2 should be still down because this is still on the older version. I did not do that. Yeah, I brought down the node 2 now, but my node 1 should be in running state. Yeah. So let me close the old window and let me try to browse the orchestrator. So it is logging me in now. I should see the eventware logs refreshing here. So you see it has logged in. And if you see the version now, it is updated to 2023.4.1. And one sanity that I'll want to do is all my entities, right? My username, the folder access that I created, everything is intact. The machine that I created. The process that I created, the historic jobs that I had run before the upgrade. All this data is coming from the database. So database is migrated to the new schema. and all the data is retained. So depending on how huge your data is, your upgrade experience and time for upgrade will vary accordingly. But I see everything is looking good. In a typical scenario, customers will then go ahead and maybe trigger a job to see if it's running fine or not. But our node 1 is built and HA is built. So 2 upgrades are completed. Now the next step is to basically go about building my second node. So if you look at it now, my node 1 is up, node 2 is down. So our next step is, since we have done sanity on node 1, we're going to take, if I go back to this slide, we're going to generate the parameter.json file and then use it as a reference to build our second node. Okay, so in order to do that, clear out the terminal. So for that, I'll have to go to the orchestrator build folder. So in the orchestrator build folder, there is a folder for tools in which all the utilities of orchestrator are present. So basically, this is a PowerShell script which generate parameter file which comes out of box. To copy, this is to copy all the configuration from this node to any other node. So I'll delete the previously created parameter.json file and I will go to this path first. I'm still on node 1. Successfully upgraded, successfully exported the parameter JSON file. So it's created here. So next step is to take this file and can put it on the node 2 server. So under node 2 server, I have again under downloads, I have created a folder for 23.4 setup. I'm going to paste my parameter.json file over here. I can just quickly open it in Notepad to do quick checks. So one thing I can see here is it has copied everything, but I think Redis password it could not copy correctly. It's a good practice to again verify everything. This is not 100% foolproof way, but it will do the job of like copying all your configurations from node 1. So I see that everything is looking fine and it is like built in a proper structure for me to trigger the upgrade on node 2. So in order to trigger the upgrade on node 2, I'm going to use this command which I explained earlier. I'm going to pass the secondary node 1 parameter and basically the parameter JSON file as reference to trigger the second node upgrade. So I'll copy this command. Let me go to the current location. So I'm in 23.4 setup, right? I have the parameter file and the JSON file. I mean the JSON file and the MSI available here. So I'm going to generate the logs of this name, upgrade logs.txt, and slash passive indicates that it's going to be a passive installation. The installer will not ask me for any inputs. Instead, it will read the inputs from, it will not be any human input, but it will read the inputs from the parameter file that I specify. So this will trigger the installer, but to look at the contents of log, I will again run the same command, scan logs. So this will again take around, I think 5 to 10 minutes I don't have to do anything. I just need to monitor the logs and set up while this node is getting built. So the logs will keep populating in the background. It will do the same things. It will do the prerequisite checks. It will read the config, and using this config, it will try to run an upgrade on this node. It will not upgrade the database because the database is already updated, but it will upgrade the build on this particular node and then point to the same database. So these are the steps that this is going to perform. But in interest of time, while it performs this, Priyesh, if you want to take over and explain the team about the PAAS installation concepts and the demo walkthrough.
Sure, Shreyas.
Thank you.
So let me quickly pull up my screen over here. Okay. So, we have seen what we can do in infrastructure as service but when we talk about PaaS, right, which is platform as a service, right, where we get only the runtime environment and we can deploy our applications onto the stack, right? So for the interests of time, like, what I have done, I have created, few of the app services which needs to be created on PaaS setup. So again, if you have not seen the earlier demo where we have installed the PaaS, it is more about going on to the platform, going into app services. So I'm on Microsoft Azure and I have, we can create new app services over here. So I already have some services which we'll be using for this upgrade. During the installation, again, what we normally do over here is like, having some scripts. And then we run those scripts by passing some parameters into it. The upgrade goes hand to hand with that. So let me just show you. So I have created two services over here. So if you want only orchestrator and identity, you will have to create a separate service for orchestrator and a separate service for identity. So as you can see, I have two different services over here. And then once you have set up, just verify a few details. The most recent changes which I wanted to highlight over here onto this call. Previously, Microsoft used to support .NET 3.1. However, from the recent times, they have stopped supporting 3.1 and they have given new settings over here for .NET Core. So in your app service version, if you don't have anything specified over here, you can simply come and select .NET 6 as an LTS version over here into your settings. Moving on to the upgrade part of it, and as we are running short on time, let me just quickly pull out the upgrade scripts. So upgrade script is same to what we normally see into our installation scripts, right? It's just the action which goes as a different thing, and then you provide a new installation package into it. So, I have this orchestrator PS1 file, which is available into my installable files. We'll cover that in a while. Then you have to give action as an update. For a new installation, for a fresh installation, we give action as a deploy. Then you want to run it in an unattended manner. So we don't want any manual interventions over here. You give the package path over here, like where you have the UiPath web.zip files. And then you want to stop the application before publishing. So you provide this parameter over here. So like what we have seen in IAAS, right? We go ahead and we stop the site over there in the IAAS, right? Here you can simply pass a parameter and that will do the job for you. Apart from that, you have the authentication parameters like subscription ID, tenant ID, application ID, and application password that are like needed to connect to Microsoft Azure. Then you provide the resource group on which you have created the service, the name of the service. So I have created a separate fresh service over here, which is like CS orchestrator -2. And then the parameter which is also covered in IAAS, which is confirm block classic execution. So we have to pass that parameter as well over here. So for this setup, what I have done, I have downloaded my zip file over here. So when I go to my UiPath Orchestrator, so everything is there into this service. So let me just delete the logs as I was doing something. So it gives you a clean thing over here. So these are the contents of the file that you normally get. So you have different zip files over here and a few of the scripts which we need to run over here. So as we are doing the upgrade for orchestrator first, we will be running the publish orchestrator.ps1 script over here. As you have created the script, is a straightforward thing. Just 1 minute. So as we have created the script, you can simply have this script, go to a PowerShell window where you have this path. So I simply go over here. I already have a PowerShell open, which is pointing onto this path. And I'm going to put my script over here. What this script normally does, right? Like it again takes 15 to 20 minutes, but I do have an output ready, which we can cover. So I'll just trigger this now over here. So it will start installing, not installing, it will start upgrading the orchestrator service. So let's go and see what exactly it does. So I do have something which I have kept ready for this demo. And with the interest of time, let's cover it. So as you can see, I have run this script. It goes and log into Azure first. Then the zip file that we have given as a package over there in the script, right? It uses MS deploy utility. What this utility does, it first, unzips the file content, and then it starts uploading those files onto the www root folder of the app service. And wherever it needs to delete the older files, wherever it needs to update the existing files, or wherever it needs to add the files. So you can see all those things happening over here. Let's come down. So once the file is being updated onto the service front, then it goes to the database part of it, where it make the changes in the schema. So let's go down. Okay, so here you see the second portion of the script. So it has successfully deployed our files onto the www root folder onto the app service front, and then it starts with the database schema changes. So it just passed all the required parameters automatically. Like we have not given anything over here. So it just takes from the existing files and then start updating the schema as well. And once that is being done, it validates the data, like whatever the changes we have done are being successful or not. And at the last, it just gives you a message like all the details are there from the app service front. And at the last point of it, it just says the application is being started successfully. So a couple of things, like maybe you can say no need to manually do things over here when you are using the PAAS scripts to to go for an installation or upgrade. So I'll say it's common for both. And the upgrade process looks like this. Like again, the 3 steps as we have seen in IAAS. First, you get the files. You you start the installation, which puts the file into the site. Then you do the database schema changes, and then you just do the validation. The same thing goes for identity service as well. So talking about identity service, it's a similar kind of a script which comes into picture for identity service as well. So again, the action is going to be update. Again, you're passing the Azure subscription parameters, like for authentication. Here, a couple of different parameters that we pass. So we do pass the orchestrator URL over here. We do pass the identity URL as well over here. So I have given the orchestrator URL and the identity URL for this. Then the org details. Now here we want to do a binding between the orchestrator identity services, right? So we do pass the orchestrator details, like what is my resource group, what is my service name, and the target slot is nothing but production. The same thing goes for identity server details, which is the resource group, the same, then the identity service name, and then the production as the target slot. Then the package details. So for identity, we use 2 different packages. One is the identity service, identity server.web.zip, and the second one is the identity server.migrator.cli.zip. Now this migrator is needed to have the binding between the orchestrator and the identity service. Then again, stop application before publish. Resource catalog URL, you have to, like, if you are using an external resource catalog service, then you can give that URL over here. So that is something which we have introduced from version 22.10. And then the mode is going to be unattended for this. So again, we will just quickly copy this and we go onto our identity service. Ideally, we should wait for orchestrator to complete, but just for the interest of time, I'll just quickly run this. And I already have an output for this also ready. So we'll go to our output. Again, I think the data is too much on this, so we cannot see the first part of it. But again, it just does the exact same thing, logs into your Azure portal. Then do the unzipping, then upload the files into your site. And once the upload part of the files is done, it goes to the database and start making the changes into the database. So if you can see over here. And once those things are done, it adds few of the entries which are new into the app settings of the service. And then once all the settings are done, it gives you an output like the site has started again. So it takes again 15 to 20 minutes for each of these services. So I kept the output ready and just thought of sharing this. Anyway, the scripts are running. So if you have any questions that you want to ask, feel free to ask. And here also you can see it has uploaded the file for the orchestrator, and now it's running the database scripts. So it is halfway through. there are a few things that we can cover again as part of documentation. So there are multiple, parameters that you can pass into these scripts, like, Redis, Elasticsearch, external storage, which Shreyas has mentioned already. So I have not covered all those things in detail, but, every parameter that we can do on IAAS side is applicable for PAAS as well. So, for instance, action, if you have to deploy or if you have to install a new one, you pass this thing as deploy, and then if you have to upgrade, you have to pass it as update. Then the application ID, Azure password that we have covered, that is more of an authentication to Azure. Then the resource group name, app service name, we have used those. For the package, you provide the path where you have downloaded the zip file for the orchestrator. Then the activities package path. Then if you want to enable the test automation feature, which we have seen on the UI, right? When we were doing the IS based installation, either you can select the test automation and the insights feature, right? So you can pass all these things as a parameter into your scripts, and you can trigger the installation. So yeah, I think you can always refer the docs links over here. So with 23.4 you have all these parameters. The important thing to note, which Shreyas has also emphasized, we have stopped the execution of the classic folders. So if you don't pass this parameter over here, which is mentioned as confirm block classic execution, you will get a validation error. And yeah, I think this is it from my end for PAAS. Any questions? Feel free to ask. Shreyas, if you want to take control again, if you have installation is completed on the secondary node. You're still talking on mute.
Yeah. Sure, Priyesh. Thanks, man. Thanks for that demo. I hope everyone got a glimpse of IAAS installation as well as, IAAS Orchestrator Upgrade as well as PAAS Orchestrator Upgrade from this session. So while Priyesh was giving his demo, I was able to complete the installation on Node 2. It's in the final stages, so it's just coming up. As soon as it does, I will bring up my screen again and I'll share. So any question anyone has, meanwhile, like we have last around 10 to 12 minutes left for the session. And while we show you the last part of the demo, um, we've spoken through a lot. So feel free to like unmute yourself or ask your questions in the Slido link. Okay, so as we speak, the installation is come to the closure, like it has successfully installed Orchestrator on Node 2 also. So as you can see, this is my, I hope my screen is visible to all.
Yep.
So this is my Node 2 Orchestrator, and before handing over the control to Priyesh, I had triggered the upgrade installer using the parameter.json file, and I provided secondary node is equal to 1 flag, and I triggered the installation. It ran through for a few minutes and it has just concluded. So I can see this message. This is the message you should be looking for. So I'm running this logger check, which keeps on tailing for last 10 lines. So I can see it here. Otherwise, you can always go to the location and you can create it. I mean, open this in text notepad or any text editor, and you should be interested in this particular message, which says that installation completed successfully. Then I brought up the node again. Now I think we are like good to perform the sanity. So as we speak, I try to browse the node and I can see the new logs getting generated on this node. So that means the request is coming to coming to this node. So the last log is from 250 latest logs, right? So it is fetching the responses. So, and I can see the orchestrator in action. So now basically my end-to-end setup is ready. Both my orchestrator nodes are updated to 2023.4.1. Both nodes are in running state. Let me quickly revalidate that. Yeah, my node 1 is also up and my node 2 is also up and my HA is also updated to the latest version. So if I look at the HA portal wizard, now I can see like maybe some traffic flowing through over here. So I can see some data reads and writes happening. And if I also look at the used memory and total keys, it's 34 now. Previously it was 11. So now both nodes are functioning, up and functioning and generating the cache. So that concludes like building of node 2. So in today's demo, just to quickly recap, we have seen how to do the validation before the upgrade, the planning part, the backup part. Once we have triggering the upgrade, how to trigger the upgrade on node 1. Once the node 1 is done, how to do basic sanity by keeping node 2 down. Once we are satisfied with node 1 upgrade performance, generate the parameter file, pass it over to node 2, use that to build the node 2 upgrade. Once both the nodes are up, then it's an optional but recommended thing to upgrade HA also. So you can you can turn off the Redis flag, momentarily change the setup to single node setup. And if you don't want downtime in the background, you can upgrade Redis. And once the Redis is updated, log into the portal, run RL check and RL admin status command to verify that the cluster is healthy. Log into the portal, verify that the cluster is in a healthy state, and then convert your setup back to multinode again and re-enable the Redis flag from the config file. So that are the steps we saw in the IAAS orchestrator upgrade setup. Then I handed over the control to Priyesh and he has given you a walkthrough of a PAAS setup. So it was very exciting for us to show you this demo today. So I hope you learned a few new concepts and it gave you a good walkthrough of how to go about performing the orchestrator upgrade. We'll be sharing the material after the call, but thanks again everyone for your participation and patience for listening in. With that, I'll hand it over back to you, Rohit.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shreyas. Thank you, Priyesh, for the informative session. I'm sure all of you were able to get some insights around this.